Lots of folks have a love-hate relationship with slide guitar. We love the sound of it, but when we try to do it ourselves, we quickly become frustrated. I think I can help. Today we're going to get you up and running with open tuning slide, which I do think is the easiest way to start. And because we're in open tuning, we're also going to check out where the open position chords are, where the open position scales are, and give you some simple groove and fill exercises before we finally get to slide techniques and lyrical slide licks. But first, this video is sponsored by TrueFire.com, the world's largest online library of interactive music lessons taught by the world's greatest players and teachers, and also folks like me. I make several courses a year. Here's a cool thing about TrueFire. If you can't decide on what course you might want to download, you could always sign up for 1 year of all access. With that, you still get the on-screen tabs and backing tracks to practice along with, plus 25% off downloads if you choose to download a course. A lot goes into the making of their courses, and I think it's worth it. Check the description box below for the link to get 1 year of all access. By the way, tabs and backing tracks for this lesson are available a la carte on my website or through Patreon membership. By the way, I did make a video about standard tuning slide last year. You could check that one out if you want to. But for now, let's put our thinking cap on and get to the open tuning. Let's talk about the gear for a minute. This is a 1957 Supro dual tone. You can still find these for not too much money. I got this one for $1,000 on reverb.com. Very cool. It has the sound. It has absolutely, I've tried so many guitars to be my slide guitar, and this is the one that I've settled on. I'm like, yeah, this is the one that does it for me. These are single coil pickups, very unique design. They're like, I forget, Tom Brantley, my pickup guru, talked about it in a video that like they're not oriented the usual way that pickups are. Very dark. And then, that's the neck pickup we're using all day today. It's kind of funny, the way the switch works is backwards. That's bridge. So cool. I am using flat wound strings. I have flat wound 11s on here. Again, that's a Rye Cooter thing, flat wound strings for slide. My action is not terribly high. Again, everybody I think should have a little StewMac action gauge. I know they're expensive, but it's just really handy to keep around. If your guitar starts to feel funny, you go, okay, well, what's the action actually at? Is it wrong, or is it all in my head? Do I just need to change the strings out? I'll get a closer picture of this, but it's not much higher than normal for me. It's like 1.75 millimeters on the high E, and 2 millimeters and change on the low E, which isn't much higher than how I keep my regular playing guitars set up. Now, slides, the two that I use the most, or actually really there's one that I use the most, but there's one that I used to use. I like the Dunlop 220 heavy wall glass slide because I can just kind of comfortably rest that on my pinky. For years and years, I used the Dunlop, which one is this? Sorry, this is a 212 heavy wall glass slide. This is the 220 chrome steel. Again, I would do like that on this finger. That was how I played slide for years and years and years. And then I did the Corsidon bottle. You try slides. My main thing is, I think, and we'll talk about this more as we get into the slide playing, don't jam the slide all. I don't like to jam it past that knuckle because that's kind of naturally how your hand works. If you put it all the way down, you kind of end up chasing the slide around and kind of, maybe it works for you, but generally don't jam them on too tight. Don't push them past that knuckle, but we'll talk more about that in a minute. First, let's get acquainted with the tuning. D, A, D. Here's the sweet note. F sharp, A, D. Then the next thing we want to do is find out where our 1, 4, and 5 chords are. Obviously 1 is right there. Common way to do a 4 chord. That shows up in Rolling Stones and, in open G, but actually, well, he uses it when he's in open E also. If you wanted, you could add this note too. Or sometimes in blues, you'll hear that. So that's really a G over D, or sorry, G7 over D. Now the 5 chord, normally A would be like this. Obviously, we're in a funky tuning. Now sometimes, especially you notice it in open tunings, to make the third sweet, that's just the tiniest bit south of 440. And so that definitely comes into play around here. Because for these two A's to be perfectly on, this little C sharp here is at 440, but you can hear it's not great. So honestly, I usually say to do the 5 chord like this, the 4 chord, and then the 1. Let's just hear 1 4 1 5. I can make it an A7 kind of thing. Now let's check out some of our scales. Let's look at major pentatonic first. My girl. Now the second octave is kind of funny. You have some choices about how you can do it. And I actually skip because we have this beautiful F sharp here. Sure, you could do it open. That's cool, but it tends to be a little easier for moving around to do it on that 4th fret here. I catch Ry Cooder doing stuff like that instead of using the open. And then always a good exercise to do if you've just learned a new chord or a new scale, do a very simple 1 bar of keeping a groove and 1 bar of, mostly quarter note fills. Here's, I'll show you what I mean. Major pentatonic with kind of a Bo Diddley. Something like that. Of course, though, we're in open tuning. We're doing slide. Okay, where's our pentatonic minor? Mostly 3s and 5s. There's our first octave. Now watch out, because that F sharp string, that gives you an interesting. One more time. That's our first octave. And sure, if you want. Same thing, 1 bar of that kind of Bo Diddley groove, and then very simple fills. It's the best way I know to show our brain, hey, if you were playing this in a song or if you were playing this with people, all right, there's the groove, and all right, there's a couple of notes, but I'm right back to it. We're not wandering, all the way off into, Noodle Town. Now talk about left-hand slide technique. Let me get a little my little headgear out here because it does help. Because that's the thing with slide. There's a lot about it that you can't see unless you're from, the director's chair, as it were. All right, let's see here. Sure. Now say I was going for that 12. The main thing is that we want the circle of the slide to be lined up right where the fret itself is, not where you normally put your finger because you'll be out of tune. So you have to really try and keep the slide straight up and down and aimed, so the circle of the slide, the tangent point, right? Is that tangent? I don't know. Lines up with that metal line. So say I just go from 10 to 12. You can see that, right? Are we cool? Now I'm not trying to hit all 6, I'm hitting the top 4. Let's go down 4 to 5. See if we can see that. And then 10 to 12. And then generally, I'm going to turn this off. We try and keep it so that our fingers, tend to stay supporting the slide, not like some people's hands, like they freak out when a slide is in your hand and they like it gets all crazy style. So you just try and, real comfortably, just kind of keep this thing as a mitt. Let's go 4 to 5, 10 to 12. And this starts to sound like Rolling Stones, No Expectations, which sure, that's a nice little piece of repertoire. A little 9 to 10, top 3. Brian Jones, so cool. And then, yeah, I do 10 to 12 on that. And I think he did a log. That's a great open tuning kind of beginner slide thing. It's got so much vibe for such a simple thing. Yeah, I just love playing that. I guess we should have talked about the vibrato. It's side to side. So it's, it's not like we're used to with our wrist, for bending where it's like a rotation that way. It's actually, it's that way. Another classic piece of open tuning slide repertoire, well, that would be Dust My Broom. Some triplets here. So let's just kind of slow it down. Again, really trying to keep that slide lined up, straight up and down with that 12th fret. And then the tricky part is, that little piece is tricky, that we have a 15-15. And then that's tricky to do. So slowly, because blues sounds cool slow as it does fast. And then, just do some boogie stuff here. Then the lick again, slowly. Here's the 5 chord. And then there's a couple of different ways to do the classic turnaround. Because the strings are doubled up in octaves, sometimes you'll hear folks do it down here. We did where the chords are, where those open position scales are, some classic repertoire. Now, though, let's get to the closed position playing, the stuff that can follow a song around, that can follow a chord progression. So say we're going to deal with this, this A chord. First things first, yeah, let's we'll go out of order, do the slightly less popular major pentatonic because I love it. So really the root is here. So, if we're dealing with this chord here, we have a lot of stuff. Now, that brings us to the next and most important thing about playing slide is stopping those strings as we move from one string to another. That's called blocking. And that's the thing that really takes a lot of patience and yeah, it takes a lot of patience and attention to detail to get it clean. Because if we don't stop those strings at all, that's what that sounds like. You end up fine because you get those resonances once you're back to the starting chord. But my rule for playing with a pick, which I think, let's start with the easiest possible thing. The rule is this: if you're going to change strings, it's the back of the thumb that stops the previous string. Okay, let me get my headgear out. and show you what I mean. So there's that root. Now, as I change string, see that? It's not, it's that. Not, it takes a lot of patience to get used to going. This camera. So we have, which that one, because it lands on the chord, sounds fine, versus blocked. Okay, so let's walk it through now that we're looking at this. Root, block, block. And that's another thing about slide. Try and get multiple notes out of one string if you can. And you can see it starts to get a little tricky down low, because that's another reason flat ones are cool, but still, even with the flats, I could hear those other ones ringing out. So that's why usually if I'm doing a slide leads, it's top 4. Okay, though, where's the blues scale now? So without the slide, if we fretted that, we'd have, again, there's our root. Interesting, very different than what we're used to with standard tuning, where everything's kind of in front of our index finger. With slide, and this is a big one, so much happens behind the chord as opposed to in front of it. So block, block, block. And then honestly, what I say is, for today, let's not worry about blocking on the way down, because that would actually require using the middle finger to stop it as you move across. So that's kind of level 2. And honestly, really, if I play slide, there's fingers. But that would be a very bad teacher to hop in there with that. So that's why we're like, hey, let's get everybody, like, I really believe that everybody can play slide for so many reasons. It's the most vocal thing. It really shows you where those intervals are, like flat third, fifth, flat 5, 4. You really get to experience those, because you're no longer trying to skiddly diddly 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 as fast as you can. You're like, well, I can't possibly, unless you're Derek Trucks, do any of that. So it forces you to really listen to intervals and tones and be vocal. I love it. But okay, so if I was going to do blues, I could start from the 5th below. Block, 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 block. And then coming back down, let's not worry about it, but you'll notice you're going to get stuff bumping into each other. It ends up working out in the end because, well, we're in an open tuning. So, yeah. And that's a big deal. Let's see, some licks that you could do. Really, there's so much with the flat 3 coming out of it. Although I guess that had to be blocked. Yeah, I guess that's like episode 2. I mean, I've done other videos on slide. Yeah, it's like I can't help but to stop the strings. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share. That costs you nothing. Sure helps me out a lot when people do that. In the time that it took me to prep, shoot, edit, tab, and make the backing tracks for this one video, 1,000 AI slop videos have been published and promoted. I talked about this in a video last week, but that video did not get recommended to most of my 300,000 subscribers. To summarize that video, just please try not to engage with clickbaity content that has no actual human presenter. It's crowding out real creators on this platform. If you value the work that I do, consider supporting me on Patreon or buying one of my courses. As Bill and Ted would say, be excellent to each other. That includes yourself. See you next week.